Hello, everyone. This is the SMC Journal Podcast, the show that's all about performance engineering in today's modern IT. I'm Scott Moore, your host. Thank you so much for being with us today. 105 episodes. That's right. This is the 105th podcast that we've done in 1 year, and we're in December and the last couple of days of December, and we want to do a year in review for 2022. Let's talk about some of the things we've done over this year, talked about subject matter, accomplishments, as well as what we know today about performance engineering and where we're going in 2023 and how we're going to make a few changes to the show based upon your feedback. So you're part of some of the changes that are coming up. Before we get into that, let's talk about the wonderful sponsors that have made this show possible this year. This podcast is sponsored by StormForge. The StormForge platform focuses on AI-powered software designed to help DevOps teams release with confidence and IT leaders realize the promise of cloud native. That means faster innovation, higher quality, resiliency, scalability, and efficiency. Find out more at stormforge.io. This podcast is sponsored by Folk Consulting. They offer high-quality consulting services around application performance management and operational monitoring of system performance. Ryan Folk and his staff of highly experienced consultants can handle any of your needs around application delivery management, analytics, application performance testing, monitoring, and digital management. Find out more at folkconsulting.com. This podcast is sponsored by Oracy Software. For over 20 years, Oracy, a DevSecOps innovator, has helped companies innovate, accelerate, and automate the entire software development lifecycle. Oracy AppSec and Oracy Cloud Solutions and Services offer full lifecycle support and integration to ensure scalability of transformative applications. Also, they're the makers of Oracy Labs, the train anyone, anywhere, anytime AWS Cloud Native virtual e-learning platform. Oracy works with hundreds of global brands as customers and partners, including Fortune 500 companies across a variety of industries. Find out more at oracy.com. And a special thanks to all of our sponsors for this year who have made it possible to do this show. It's kind of crazy that I look back and see that I've done over 100 episodes, and that doesn't include any of the other podcasts that I've been on for other shows. Those other shows include CMG's Observacon. I was on there with Amanda Henley earlier this year. I was on the show for Joe Colantonio, I think at least twice this year, a show called All Things Ops. And there was a few other presentations that I did. I also wrote some blogs this year and shared those on scottmoore.consulting, my home website. And this also doesn't include any of the Performance Tour episodes that we released this year, which includes about another, 12, 24, about 30 other video clip contents, including the full episodes, also the skits, the unedited interviews, and any extra content behind the scenes that you may have seen, as well as the blogs for summarizing each of those episodes. So wow, over 125 pieces of media content video-wise, and then a whole bunch of other stuff too. I have been a very busy boy this year, which you probably already know if you've been looking at your LinkedIn feed or any other social media that you're following me on. I also have a lot of this material on rotation, so it comes out maybe today, and then I get new followers, and about 30 days from now they'll probably see some things come out again. Maybe some new followers haven't seen that, so we try to keep some of this in rotation. Some of it is time sensitive, so we kind of let it fade away after a period of time, but some of it is good information even going forward. So what I wanted to do today is really just talk about that, the fact of what have we actually talked about this year, discuss, is this show actually bringing you value, and then what should we do, if anything, to continue the show, because it's really all about you finding value in this podcast enough to want to watch it, and sponsors wanting you to watch it and getting your eyeballs in front of their companies and their products to want to purchase their. I mean, that's what this show kind of runs on, is sponsorship. There's no way I could actually do full-time consulting and this as much as I do. So we'll talk about that as we go forward. But I just want to look back here and see. I've got a list that you can't see that's kind of on my screen that talks about each episode from the beginning. So you can go back to the SMC Journal website. In fact, let me go ahead and do that. Let's bring up the SMC Journal website. If you go there at smcjournal.com, every one of our episodes is online in order. And if you want to see any of the older episodes, you just kind of scroll down where it says older entries and click that link, and it'll take you back and you'll get to see 6 at a time. You'll see all the sponsors on the page. And then we also have some content for blogs. So this was another presentation that we did earlier. This was back in April. And we have some other, when we start sharing things like files or things that you can download, a lot of times we will share them on that blog page. But just to show you, you can get to all of these episodes, but I just want to start off with, we started the year talking about Prometheus, how to use it, and why I think it's probably going to be one of the performance monitoring standards across the board. We've talked about a lot of product this year, like Azure load testing. We've talked about Google Core Web Vitals, why those are important, why Kubernetes is important to cloud native infrastructure. I've done some performance rants. We've talked about protocols. We talked about like HTTP version 3 and QUIC, kind of where that came from. We've talked about products that are actually in competition with some of my sponsors. We've talked to the founders of BlazeMeter. We've talked about LoadRunner multiple times, load testing fundamentals, Keysight eggplant performance. Keysight was a sponsor from January until June this year. I've also done some kind of hooky things like, hey, 5 reasons why performance testing sucks, just to get you to click on it to see things you shouldn't be doing, anti-patterns for performance testing. We've talked a lot about observability this year, and that was based a lot on your feedback. So I did a special 4-part episode that talked about the leaderboard from Gartner's observability what do they call it, the Magic Quadrant board, and we talked about all the leaders and separated them out, talked about the pluses and the minuses. That actually got quite a few views, and I got calls about that as well. We talked about Dynatrace releasing Grail. We did at least 6 episodes around KubeCon 2022 out of Detroit, which included not only my summary and my coverage, but independent or individual interviews with various companies that were in attendance there. We attended the PepLink conference tech summit that was in Savannah, and we did broadcast on that before the conference and after the conference. We've been talking a lot about SREs and how they relate to performance engineering. So I mean, it just, the list goes on and on. I've talked about not only process, but product, and I've talked to people who are important in this realm of performance, and not just strictly performance testers, right? I've talked to Haymaker Coffee Company and talked about how they run their company, how they did their startup, and why they're actually partnering with me to have my own brand of coffee and why that would be important. We've talked to multiple observability platform providers and talked to and asked them why they are different from each other. What are they offering to the market? We've talked open source as well as commercial tools, but all of this has to do with how it relates to performance engineering and performance testing in today's modern IT world. Now, I have gotten quite a bit of feedback from people because I asked for it at the end of every one of these episodes, and I want to talk a little bit about what you've told me that you want to see. So we'll go into that list right now. The first thing is you want to hear more about observability. You liked the observability coverage. Everyone is beginning to get into observability. I say everyone. There are a lot more companies into observability now than there were just 24 months ago. APM vendors who were called APM, named APM software vendors, are now observability vendors. There is always the hype and the smoke and the mirrors that needs to be cut through in any area where you've got a buzzword like observability, like AI ops, like machine learning, and everything else that comes out every 6 months. There's a new acronym, right? So Well, we talk about that, and we will begin talking about it even more. We'll have more interviews with those observability platform providers. We will talk more about, this is obviously other things that you've asked me about. Where does performance engineering relate to DevOps? How does the site reliability engineer, reliability and resilience, cross over into the path of performance engineering? How does platform engineering and chaos or resilience engineering play a role in performance as well? And what happens, what's the learning path when you're titled an SRE, but performance is the issue that you're having to deal with today, and you don't have a specialty for it? What do? What if you're just beginning doing performance testing and you don't have the context of the past, and maybe suddenly you're a cloud native application developer, and now suddenly you've been acquired by a bigger company who has legacy applications, and now you're being asked to do traditional load testing on a legacy application that you've never done before. And then the opposite is true. You've been doing traditional load testing against big packaged applications, for example, and now you've been told you've got to go against this huge microservices spaghetti application and test each individual microservice or component, and it's in the Kubernetes auto-scaled clusters and pods and all these things that you have to now test against, monitor, and figure out the scalability level of it. That can be a learning curve. So you want to see more practical information of how do I use this tool, not just about the tool and what it does, but let's see some more. Like, you like the demos, and I get that, but you want to see, hey, Scott, let's bring it up. How did you solve a specific problem with this product? So we'll be doing more of that. And we will, those subjects that I just mentioned, DevOps, platform engineering, chaos, we will begin talking about those as well a lot more. Second thing that I heard, you want fewer episodes of the podcast per week. So I've been doing this twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, which is why we have 105 episodes so far this year. And you've really told me, Scott, it's great that you're pushing out all this content, but man, slow down. We can't keep up with all the stuff that you're doing. I don't have time to sit there for 20 or 30 minutes twice a week to watch you mouth off about stuff. So maybe just cut down on the content just a little bit, because, hey, you've got a library of stuff we can watch now. So that's the second thing, is because of that feedback, I feel like I'm pushing so much out there, maybe that I should back off a little bit and go to once a week. That's 4 episodes a month. They're usually going to be around 20 minutes in length. I'll try to make them shorter if I can, but if you're going to demo something or you're going to review something, it's probably going to be about that length. It will not be the hour plus, or even 45-minute podcasts that you get, those long conversation podcasts. So I'm trying to do them what I call short form, which is about 20 minutes, and we'll do that once a week. So next year, for 2023, I'm expecting to do about 50 episodes. Now, that also depends on sponsorship, and I'll get to that in just a moment. The third thing is you want this more content with hands-on, and I kind of mentioned this just a while ago, but hands-on, how you solved a problem, more screen sharing time. Now, I understand that's important. And so for the hardcore technical audience that's out there for this podcast, we're going to give you some of that. We can't do it every single time because we do have a wide audience. And that's really the goal of this, is to make performance engineering and site reliability engineering, for that matter, open to a wider audience than just the hardcore people who are writing code, writing scripts, automating, monitoring, doing all these, setting up all these things. We want people who are not in that field to kind of understand what we're doing at a higher level, to understand the value that we're providing to their organization. So while we can't do it every time, we will do more of that in the future for 2023. Around that same technical content, what you've asked me for is more than just a summarized 20-minute screen sharing technical thing. You'd like to see step-by-step with code on a blog page. So you'd like to see me writing more in blog format, which I love to do. It takes me a little longer to do that, but I'm going to try to commit to writing more than just doing video content next year, to give you more value of, here's screenshot by screenshot, code for code, what I did, how I did it, and you can recreate this yourself in your own lab. I'm actually investing right now working on this as we speak on investing in a home lab, not just a cloud lab. I actually had a cloud provider who made a change to their licensing model, and because of it, I had to shut down a lot of machines. So while I will do things in AWS or Google Cloud to spin up a cloud server if I need to demonstrate something, I want my own home server as well, my own testing lab to be able to recreate stuff and not even be dependent on the cloud for some of this stuff. So I'm putting that together. So over the holidays, while you're enjoying your time with your family, I'm probably going to be hooking up network cards and hard drives and formatting and making RAID stripes and things of that nature. So that's my holiday. So I will be putting together a lab in order to create this kind of technical content. So the other thing we'll be doing is updating some of the look and feel of the show. I feel like we need just a little bit of a reboot and a refresh on, say, the way the web page looks, the way the camera angles and some of the stuff. We will be expanding the rack of stuff. I would like to actually take this little rack right here and actually make a much bigger rack, and the same thing over on this side. And so if you want to send me some really cool stuff to put on this rack to feature and it looks cool, then we'll put it out there. So contact me directly if you want to know how to get stuff here on the rack of stuff. And also we now have named George. We've just called him George because he's in the holiday mood right now, by the way. We'll continue to change his outfits as often as we possibly can, but for the time being, we are calling him Agent 503, Secret Agent 503. He's always over my shoulder. He's like the Men in Black, except he's just in holiday format right now, watching over, making sure everything is safe, making sure it's performing well, that everything's secure, we're not getting hacked, those type of things. So that is Agent 503. Until you can give me a much better name for that. Maybe we will have a giveaway next year. That's another thing I'd like to do, is have a few giveaways where we can, and it doesn't matter where in the world you're at, we don't have to worry about high shipping costs. We can do it electronically, and we can do a few giveaways as a way to give back to you for subscribing and watching this show. Which brings me to the next piece of feedback that I have. Many of you have said, because of all this content that you're producing, Scott, sometimes we would just like to pick through the things that interest us. Like, we might like your show from Tuesday, but we really don't care about your show from Thursday. But we do want to watch the show from Tuesday, but we want to know about it. And you know what? We get a lot of noise on social media, so sometimes we don't even see that you've put out a show until much later. And, we have to keep checking out. What we would really like you to do is summarize the things that you're doing every month. Send us an email once a month. Just says, hey, here's what we did this month. Here's the links to all the shows or the blogs or whatever we've done. And we can just click on what we're interested in at the end of the month. Well, that requires a mailing list. And I have never done a mailing list. And some people have told me I'm crazy for not doing that in the content creation world. I don't really like the idea of collecting a lot of personal data, and I don't like the idea of selling that data to somebody else to try to make some kind of a quick marketing buck. I'm not really about that. I know how I would feel about somebody doing that to me. But the only way that I can actually track who wants to see something or who wants to keep in touch, who's interested in my stuff, what I should tell my sponsors in terms of who should sponsor my show that wants you to see their product or offering, if I don't know what you're actually interested in. Also, if I want to give something away, like I just talked about, it would be nice to have that information at hand so I could contact you to say, you're the lucky winner of this $5,000 gift card from Amazon. Hey, it could happen, right? So that is my purpose for saying I'd like to create a mailing list, and I'd like to know who would like to be on that mailing list. So you will hear more about that probably in the January timeframe. I'm deciding on a platform to go with for that. I want to be very specific about how I use that mailing list. It would basically just be for sending the people who want the information once a month through an email. Here's what we did. Here's a free newsletter. Letting sponsors put a small text ad out there, maybe a banner or something on that email saying, hey, we support Scott Moore, we support the performance community, or hey, we have something the performance community might be interested in. And I would have to personally, approve that. It's not like I'm going to just send you an advertisement for, a automobile or something. It would be something relative, and it'd probably be something that I personally believe in or probably use. So, that's what I'd like to do. I'd like to create that mailing list and then be able to contact any winners from that mailing list. So only the giveaways would be for the people who sign up for the mailing list. I'm trying to reward people who want to see this content and help make this content possible, and give me more feedback on the direction that I take this. So again, we'll be making some updates to sort of the website, some equipment. Maybe I'll get some better cameras, and maybe I'll get some better graphics for. I use a platform for the video creation called Ecamm Live, and so I'll be kind of looking for some people who are consultants on making graphics for Ecamm Live look a little better and the whole live show. I also use something called a Stream Deck, which a lot of people who do content use this, where you push a button and it kind of does the automation. So I can bring in, for example, this icon and my name at the beginning of the show. So we'll be doing a little more of that, make it a little bit more fancier, a little bit more like a TV style episode. And those are the things that I can think of as to the changes. So a little less content, but more a different kind of content as well. So podcast, a little bit different format for some of the podcast, blog articles, technical articles, a mailing list to give people a summary every month as to what all we're doing. And this would not only include the podcast that we're doing for SMC Journal, the things we're doing there, but also for the Performance Soar. So don't forget, I also have that show. That is a monthly show, and it has been renewed for 2023. So I'll be talking about that in a different video, not on this SMC Journal video, but we have been renewed for that, and we'll be doing road shows, live meetups for that. So I'm still going to be out there and still going to be more active than I probably ever have been, but I'm just making some tweaks based upon the things that you've told me. I'm going to continue to post on social media questions and asking for feedback from people, and I have had a few really good pieces of feedback recently. Like somebody just reached out to me and said, hey, can we talk? I've been following you for a long time, and I think I have some valuable input for you. Got on the phone and talked for probably a half an hour, 45 minutes, and it was a great conversation. I'm open, and when I'm doing something wrong, or when I say something wrong and I need to be corrected, or I need to be pushed back on, I'm open to that. And I also want everybody to know that I don't pretend, I am a subject matter expert, but I don't pretend to know it all. I'm learning just like you are. And the world in IT is definitely changing. I recognize that the problems that we're solving today for performance and engineering are different now than they were 20 years ago or 25 years ago when I was green and starting. And there are people learning this stuff right now, and I want to help you. I want to help you avoid the minefields that I stepped on when I started out in this industry. But they're different minefields in 2022 and 2023 than they were in 2000, 2001, etc. So we've got to change. We've got to go with the flow, and we've got to figure out what is the pertinent solutions that we need to be talking about and discussing now. And how do we find those answers? And who are the people who know the answers to that? And who are the people causing the problem so we can beat them up? No, I'm just kidding. So that's really what this was about. I think we've had a really good start for this year. Sometimes I look at the numbers and I look at the views and the subscribers, and for the performance realm, I think it's really good. Some people could call me out and say, hey, you don't have 1 million subscribers and you don't have 1 million views every month like Taylor Swift does, but you're not Taylor Swift. You're not that audience. And even if I got all of Taylor Swift's audience looking at these videos, they're not going to do anything about the content that they see. Most of them wouldn't even understand it, and they're not going to buy anything from the sponsor. So there's no reason for a sponsor to put anything on a show like this when, even if there's a lot of eyeballs on it, they're not going to do anything. So the people who watch this show, I realize they are the hardcore, the SRE, DevOps, performance engineer, system engineer, platform engineer, data scientist. Those are the titles and the focus of where this show needs to go. But how many of there are you out there in the world? I would guess right now in 2022, the site reliability engineer number is in the tens of thousands, maybe 20,000, 25,000 worldwide. So even if I got 100% of the audience of all these engineers, it's still not going to amount to Stupid Cat Video subscribers or Mr. Beast, right? I'm never going to be that. That's okay. I'm doing this for a different reason. I'm not doing it to monetize videos and make money off of marketing. I'm doing it to educate with hopefully a little bit of entertainment in there just to keep things interesting. And third thing is to widen the audience from just the people who are the practitioners to people who are just curious and interested in it and wondering what is the value and should I think about things like performance engineering other than just on Black Friday or when we're preparing for a Black Friday or a peak load event. Maybe we should think about it more than that, and here's why it's important. So that's really what we're trying to do here. I hope that we've done something this year to educate you. I hope you've got something. Maybe you downloaded some of the files and have utilized it. If you had, I'd really like to know if you think we're doing the right thing. I keep hearing, Scott, you're on the right track. Keep doing what you're doing. But it really gets down to, can I keep doing this full time? And can I do it full steam ahead the way I have been this year? I've been very fortunate and blessed because between the Performance Tour show, the sponsors that I have there, and the sponsors for this podcast, it has made me self-sustainable where I did not have to take additional contracts to work on consulting engagements, which I've had to do pretty much all of my life. This has always been sort of a side thing. But that's the reason why I was able to produce so much content this year, is because I've been doing it full time. Now, I'm not a marketing guru. I'm not an SEO expert, and I think that's pretty obvious. But I'm getting there, and I'm learning just like you are. But if the sponsors don't see a value in this show, they're not going to continue to put money behind it. If the audience isn't engaged with the sponsors to say, hey, thank you for sponsoring that show, and we're taking a look at your product. Not that you're having to buy their product every time you see it, but you acknowledge that they're doing something that's helping you advance your career, and somehow you're paying it forward or you're paying it back. That's just kind of what I am expecting. And so I'm hoping that we get the same number of sponsors and we're able to continue this full time. If not, we may have to pull back. I may have to actually, so if I have to actually take a consulting engagement, I won't be able to do as much content here. I do enjoy making the content. I do enjoy doing this, but you know, there's these things like paying bills and eating and surviving that kind of take precedence over some other things. So I know you understand, and I know you know what I'm talking about. So if you are somebody who has gained something from the show, just give me some feedback and let me know. If you are part of a company, or you run a company or own a company that you want to see your stuff put in front of the performance engine and SRE community, because you want them to see your product or your service, because those are your potential customers. I can't think of another program that would be better to sponsor than this program, because it is directly to that channel. So I hope that you'll contact me for sponsorship opportunities for 2023. You can send me all of that feedback through my website, scottmoore.consulting, through social media, such as on my LinkedIn page or Load Tester, my Twitter handle. You can also just send me an email at help@scottmoore.consulting. Would love to hear what you think. And if you send me an email and you want me to take a picture with Agent 503 and send it directly to you as a Christmas present or a holiday present, happy to do that too. If you do like this content, other than giving me feedback, you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now, this is a screenshot that I've got that shows when we first started somewhere in the January, February timeframe, and we had 667 subscribers. Well, we're over 1,447 or 1,436. So we have gained almost 1,000 subscribers from this time last year, because before, I think January, we were in the 300, 400 range. So yeah, it's not as much as Taylor Swift. I get it. But the fact that 1,440 performance engineers really like the content of this makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And I do appreciate it. I want you to know that I do appreciate you. So would love to hear more of your feedback. I hope to see you more often and again in 2023. I wish everybody a great rest of your holiday season, end of year, vacation, personal time off, and we'll reconnect again in January. I recorded this show earlier than what you're seeing it here. I've had it in the queue for a little bit. So I'm probably somewhere in a tiki hut somewhere where the sun is shining and taking a break, and there's no computers, no phone, nothing, anything. And I'll come back rested and relaxed in January, ready to talk about engineering, performance, DevOps, and all of that good stuff that we mentioned next year. Thank you again for watching this show. Have a great holiday and rest of your year. This is Scott Moore saying for the SMC Journal, bye-bye.